All right. Well, good morning and welcome, everybody. We're going to give it 2 minutes. We'll be getting started in just 2 minutes. I got a few more people that are jumping in. So just sit tight, hold on. Gonna have some fun talking about sales and marketing this morning. So looking forward to that. Just give me another minute. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to week five of the Authentic Conversations. I'm really excited to be doing this again, to have all of you joining me. I will have a guest coming in. Some of you have heard that I'm having John Welches, the president of Red Mallard, come in and join me about halfway through the presentation. We're going to be talking about, or he will be sharing more from the content side, like how do we communicate during this time? How do we share during this time? But for now, he's just a quiet bystander in the background. Hopefully he's quiet. I think he's on mute, which is good. But at some point, he'll be popping on. He'll come on the screen as well. And we're going to see if we can actually work out dialogue. So we'll see how that goes when the time comes. So for now, I want to set kind of a little bit of a tone for this morning. I've tried to do the best that I can each week to do that. And so this morning, or the reason for this week's topic was because I've had a lot of people recently talking to me about the challenges that they're having with sales and marketing during this season. So I consult businesses on business development, sales and marketing strategy. I also coach, and some of the people that I coach are business owners or they're in a sales role. And so they are looking for advice on how to sell during this time. And it's been interesting because I've heard a lot of people that have talked about really being afraid to sell during this time. Then last night, it just so happened that an email came into my inbox, and it was, I forget which publication it came from, but it was talking about Airbnb. So many of you are familiar with Airbnb, right? A global organization that basically works to rent out, homes for vacation rentals and short-term rentals and things like that. Well, obviously, during this season, they stopped doing that, and so there's very few Airbnbs that you can find right now as a result of that. And so Airbnb made a decision quite a few weeks ago to stop marketing. And in stopping marketing and shutting down their marketing budget, it was going to save them about $800 million. And Airbnb's been bleeding money for a long time. They really haven't been profitable yet. And so they felt like this was a good decision from a financial standpoint. Well, this article went on to talk about that maybe that is the case. But the problem is that as the result of Airbnb basically going away and removing themselves from the market for the next 3, 6, 9 months, however long they're going to they're going to pull advertising for. I think it was for the whole of 2020. I'm not sure. But this article went on to talk about the long-term negative effects of them not marketing during this time. And you think to yourself, well, you know, for me, it's not so much about budget, or maybe it is, which we'll talk about a little bit. And John and I will talk about a little bit, especially probably when it gets to his point, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But maybe for you, it's more of the first part that I said, which was you're concerned about the inappropriateness, or whether or not it's something that you should be doing with the current environment that we have in front of us. So, as always, I'm just going to pose some questions to you, and I want you to think about those things, and I'm going to unpack them to help you hopefully better think through why you should be. And I'm not going to say whether you should be, but why you should be marketing and even selling during this time. Also, as a reminder, if you have questions, you can pop them into the chat. You can pop them into the Q&A. I'm more than happy to answer any question you have along the way as it relates to anything like this or anything else for that matter. Okay, so first question that you need to ask yourself, and this should be a question that you're asking yourself anyway, but especially during a time like this. Does your product or service matter? Now, most of you, if you're in business, you're going to say yes right out of the gate, or I hope so. But I want you to really think about that for a second. Like, is the product or service that you provide, is that needed? Is that something that people really want, or should have, or can benefit from? I was coaching a client earlier this week. We were on the phone and we were chatting, and he provides pumps that help cancer patients during chemotherapy. And he was struggling to quote unquote sell during this time. Fascinating enough, as we began to unpack it, I helped him to see that people that have cancer still have cancer right now. And people that have cancer still need treatment right now. As a matter of fact, him pulling back and not continuing to press the hospitals that he's selling to provide these pumps, this service, he could be preventing people from getting healthy, from removing the cancer from their body. You may think to yourself, well, that's not me. I'm not saving people's lives. But there are a lot of things that we provide that people need during this time. Like, just because the government hasn't deemed you an essential service doesn't mean that you don't have, that you don't meet an essential need or an important need during this time. Like, you want to consider all options. You want to put all options on the table as it relates to whether or not what you do is necessary or is extremely important. Like, are you helping to protect somebody's financial well-being, mental well-being? Are you giving somebody an opportunity to earn money, or to maybe just to enjoy themselves? I mean, we've been cut off from so many things during this time that maybe for one or two of you, like, you continuing to provide service is just giving people the sanity to continue to live. And that sounds like way big and out there, but it's just the reality. And I would go as far as to say, by the way, as you're asking this question around whether or not your product or service is needed during this time, I would actually say that if you can't answer yes to that question, then maybe you should not be in business in the first place, or you should not be in that business in the first place. I mean, we should feel really good about what we do. We should feel really passionate about what we do. We should get really excited about what we do. You can tell I'm really excited about what I do. And so I believe, for me personally, that I need to continue, or I want to continue offering coaching and consulting to businesses and individuals that are out there. It's not a necessary service. They're not going to die if they don't have it, but it's still important and it's valuable. And as a matter of fact, people have come to me during this time and said that this is the time that they really need to go through this or to work with me on things like this. So that first question is really, really important. You've got to ask yourself that question. Second question you want to ask yourself is, am I out for people's good? Like, are you in business to help other people? Or are you strictly in business to benefit yourself? Now, nobody would really answer yes to that question, or yes to the second part of that question, I don't think. I've never met somebody that said, yeah, I'm only just in this for myself. But as we begin to think about the business that we're in, the role that we're in, we can start to see really quickly whether or not we're truly in it for other people. If you were with me last week, and I talked about leadership, and I said something that is very, very near and dear to my heart, which is, if you're in business and if you're a leader, you should be there to serve people. Well, this is no different. If you're in business, I believe that to do right means to do right by other people first. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't earn money, that you shouldn't, or that you can't be successful, that you can't profit. Like, you definitely should be able to do all those things. I absolutely agree with everything, all those things. But there's this line that we need to make sure we don't cross. We need to make sure that we have not set ourselves up to need to consistently feed our own monster and protect ourselves at the expense of other people. And so again, a lot of times the reason that people are asking this question of like, gosh, do I sell now? Do I market right now? It's because for some people, there's this little internal gut check that's happening, and it's telling you that you're in it for the wrong reasons. Like, for a long time, when I was in sales, like, I was never I don't think some evil monster. Like, I was never somebody that was willing to just ruin people for the sake of ruining them. But for the first, I don't know, 10 or 12 years of my sales career, I was in it for the sale. And I was really, really good at convincing people to buy what I had to sell. There was always creative ways to get them to buy a little bit more, to get them to spend a little bit more than they should, to convince them through some crafty idea or thought to buy from me, to abandon their other vendor or whatever. And it was all because I was focused on two things. I was focused on meeting my numbers in my organization and meeting my own personal income goals. Like, I didn't really care that much about my customers. I liked them as people and I cared about them as people. But when it came down to the sale, I was there to sell for my company's number and for my own personal gain. And I'm ashamed to admit that, but it's just the reality of how I was brought up selling. And I don't do that now, and I won't do that now. I'm still going to earn money. I'm still going to work to make money. I'm going to provide for my family. I'm going to enjoy things. I don't want to keep giving myself haircuts, but I'm ultimately in it to serve other people, to serve my clients, to serve, just other people out there. So that's the second question. The third question is, then, if you've answered yes to, I provide a product or service that is needed or that is beneficial to other people during a time like this. And the second question is, I'm out for, or I'm in it for other people's good. Then the third question you need to ask yourself is, okay, so how do I stay relevant during this time? And here's why this is an important question to ask. There's a good chance that people are not necessarily thinking of you right now as top of mind. They aren't focused on your company, your product, your service. You're not essential to them in the moment necessarily, but they probably are going to have a need. There's a very good likelihood that now or in the near term future, 6, 9, 12 months out, they're going to need what you have. And so instead of shoving your product and service in their face, there's another way to go about this. And we'll get to this when John jumps on in just a little bit and talks a little bit more about communication. But the key to you earning business and earning opportunities during this time is to stay relevant. You need to stay top of mind. But if you continue just to plug your products and services, eventually people are going to unsubscribe or get tired of you or whatever else. So the better way to do it, and when I say this, you're all going to have heard me say this before. If you've listened to any of my content, if you've been on any of the previous 4 webinars that I've done over the last 5 weeks, you're going to hear this time and time again. But it's this: if you want to stay relevant, the best way to do that is to provide value at all times to every single person in your audience. Like, what can you do for other people right now? How can you help other people right now? I talked about this, I think it was last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago, but the fact that the Patriots sent a plane overseas to go pick up, masks and bring them back. And, it had nothing to do with football. Football's not even on right now. And not many people care about the Patriots anyway, but it was a way, they didn't do it for this, I'm pretty sure, but like, it was a way to stay top of mind. It's a way to stay relevant. There are inappropriate ways to do that. Like when you're getting your emails from Bed Bath & Beyond that you can't even go into right now, letting you know that they're making sure that all of their stores are staying sanitary and they're with you during the COVID-19 crisis. Like, that's just garbage. And that's just a way for them to continue to send emails into your inbox that you're probably not even getting because they're spam and junk anyway. But you can continue to add value. What can you do for your community, for your audience? How can you continue to stay top of mind with a good heart, with good intentions, but what can you do? Like, there's always ways to add value. Like for most of you on this webinar, we'll probably never do business together. It's just the reality of the way that it works. And yet, this is one way that I felt I could continue to contribute value during this downtime. Like, many more people are at home. Many people have questions and they're looking for ways to continue to grow and develop and to learn. And I felt like I feel like I have value to add in that area. And so that's why I do these. Like, this is just it. I'm hopefully staying relevant to some degree, but I'm adding value. And that's how you stay relevant, is just consistently adding value. Show up for other people. I was on a call earlier with another gentleman, and he's struggling a little bit with sales. And I offered to make a couple of introductions for him. And there's nothing in that for me. I mean, maybe I'll look like a good guy, but I want to add value. I want to be helpful to other people. Another acquaintance of mine, he unfortunately was releasing a book right smack at the beginning of this whole outbreak. And it really sucked for him because it was going to be a lot harder for him to market the book because he's in the confines of his house and he's on the East Coast, and it was just a lot of challenge. And so I said, hey, why don't you come on my podcast? I mean, not that I have like this, million subscriber audience, but why don't you come on my podcast? Let's talk about the book. Let's let's just see what we can do to put you out there. Like, I benefit a little bit from that. I get a good guest and my audience gets to hear it, but hopefully that drove another book sale. I actually think he did drive a couple of sales, from the podcast. So it's just a way to add value. That's how you'll stay top of mind, is by just consistently adding value during a time like this. So that's the third question. Fourth question. If you've answered all the rest, then I would love for you to ask this question. What do your clients actually need from you? It's a question that we should be asking all the time. But it's extremely important during a time like this. What do your clients need from you now and into the future? So I want you to think about this for a second. Right now, everybody is mission critical, and again, understandably so, but is mission critical, trying to figure out how to communicate during this time. And if their business is somehow impacted or whatever, they are trying to figure out how to work through the situation, how to help their clients through the situation, through this current environment of coronavirus. And that's great. You should do that. Like, that's a honorable, noble, good thing to do. But guess what? We're not going to be in this forever. And as a matter of fact, we've already started, thank the Lord, to hear some news that says that we may turn the corner a little bit more quickly than we thought we were going to. Obviously, with all things considered and not knowing, what the future holds and if it comes back and whatever. But let's just say that we're going to have a positive mindset on Friday. Let's just say that we turn this corner a little bit more quickly than we thought, and we start to open businesses back up here in the next couple of months. By summer, we're moving and shaking. By the fall, we're happy, and we haven't had another outbreak. And so we finished 2020 kind of strong. I almost forgot what year we were in for a second. And then we're going to turn the corner, and we just want to light 2021 on fire. That's our hope. What do your clients need in order for them to come out of this as strong as possible, to turn the 2020 corner into 2021 in a much better way than they're in right now? Like, you have to think through what the future holds for these people. A couple of areas that have been relevant to me, and so I'm just going to share my own. Like in the gym is a good example. I know I bring up this all the time, but like right now we're having a lot of our needs met by virtual coaching, our coaches providing one-on-one workout programming, all those types of things. But how are we going to integrate back into the gym? Are we just going to be all over each other again? Like, what is that environment going to look like? How can they continue to meet my needs? Because I've been getting customized programming now. So like, how do I go back into general programming of workouts? So they need to be considerate of that. I work a lot in the employee benefits industry, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole today, but if employers think that they have seen financial devastation as the result of this economic impact, they have no idea the financial devastation they are going to face in 2021 as the result of all of these healthcare costs impacting their costs in 2021 and beyond. So for the brokers that I talk to, I'm trying to tell them, like, you need to be preparing your clients for their 2021 insurance renewals. Even as an individual, by the way, if you're on this call, you have insurance. That's just something for you to think about. Your health insurance costs are going to go up in 2021, guaranteed, hands down, without question. You better be prepared to spend 15, 20, 25% more than you are right now, or look for another creative solution. So that's something to consider. If you are in the technology world, like, technology has got a huge lift a huge boost and a huge opportunity as we've all been forced now to go digital. What are you going to do to build sustainable technological structure for your clients in the future? How can you help them there? So again, like for me, it's you know, I'm trying to help fight with my clients, fight through this, not just get to the other side of it. But for my clients, I'm trying to say, okay, so you took some pretty big hits financially in 2020 already, and you're going to be way off of revenue goals. What are you going to do now to make sure that you come out like a cannon in the third and fourth quarter of 2020 and really have a 2021 that makes up for all the losses in 2020? It's possible, and it can happen for the people that are going to invest into themselves. So you have to think about what your clients need, not just now. And the other thing too is like, as bad as this may sound, like we're all tired about hearing of the coronavirus. So don't always talk about it. Find other value to bring to your clients. They need things other than just response to the coronavirus. And so please make sure that you are being considerate of what your clients need. Okay, so I'm getting ready to bring John on, and I haven't tried this yet. And so we're going to see how this all works. I'm going to unmute him. Hopefully he's going to come on camera. And we're going to see if he and I can have a dialogue. This is going to be quite interesting. I'm going to have to plug in some headphones. But before I do, I want to run back through these as we turn this corner, because now communication, as he and I are going to talk about communication, it's going to be really, really important for you to hear this part. But before we get there, because that's going to be very practical, like, okay, this is what I'm going to go do. Before we get there, I want you to go back and think about the questions that I just asked. And I'm going to look at them again so I can reiterate them, because when I get rattling, I kind of forget. So number one, does my product or service matter? Meaning, is it needed by the people that I'm serving? Number two, am I out for other people's good or my own? Number three, how can I stay relevant? And number four, what do my clients need? Okay, all four of those questions, we're all focused on adding to other people, helping other people, supporting other people. I just want to preface this by saying that, preface all of that by saying, if you aren't good right now, if you aren't healthy, if your mind's not in the right spot, if physically you're not energized and healthy there, mentally, like if you're not doing well, you are going to do very poorly in adding to other people. You're just not going to have it in you. And so we definitely want and should be thinking about how we're going to market and sell, how we're going to generate revenue, how we're going to either recover our business or add to our business. Like those are all really, really important things. But do not, please, please, please do not overlook the most important component, and that's feeding yourself. It's critical. Like when I'm good, when I'm feeling good, when I'm on fire, when I'm really passionate and fired up, like I am right now. I won a client yesterday, so I'm really happy about that. Like that will give you the energy to go out and do a lot more for other people. If you are not careful, you're going to run out of steam, and you're not going to be able to do that and to invest into other people in the way, hopefully, that you should. Okay. So with that, I want to turn it over, or I'm going to bring John on. I'm going to pop some headphones on so I can hear him and we don't get feedback as we do this. And hopefully this is going to work out right. If not, we're going to abandon this part of it, and I'm just going to have to talk through it. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to pop some headphones in here. I had my mouse upside down. All right, so let's see if we can do this. I've unmuted John. John, are you there?
I'm here.
You're there. We can hear you, but we can't see you.
You can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
Oh, uh-oh.
So if you can, and I did my hair. So.
Okay, so until I figure that out, we're just going to keep going because I don't want to make people wait while we figure out my technical difficulty. So you to this point have heard everything that we've been chatting about, and or everything that I've been chatting about. I wish it was we, but you've heard everything. And so to give another introduction to John, by the way, so John is the president of Red Mallard. They're a content marketing agency. So they really focus on helping other organizations to create content to tell their stories through case studies, white papers, blogs, email campaigns, and things like that. So in that manner, the reason that I wanted John to come on is because he's working with some small businesses, but also some really large companies, and he's helping them to find this balance between communicating like how to be empathetic and understanding and address the current situation and environment, but also he's trying to do his best to continue to help people market their businesses. So with that, John, maybe we can just start off by you just helping us to understand a little bit about what are some good ways to communicate during this time.
I think if you went to participants and you clicked on the panelists section, you might see an option there.
I'll figure it out.
All right, cool. And also, there is some yard work going on that just started happening around me. So awesome. If that is this is just the fun part of the state we're in. But yeah, I mean, just the biggest thing when this all started, happening, we all got flooded with emails. We all got flooded with, we were all made aware that we were all aware of this thing that was happening by every single entity that we've ever subscribed to or had us subscribe to their stuff. And so once that kind of craziness settled down, the conversations has shifted to, well, what are we trying to say during this time? What do we need to say that's of value? Because there is so much that gets lost in a crisis of this nature. I was thinking back to, when things like this happened in 9/11, there was no social media. All we had was the news coverage. And that was kind of a, in the air quotes, an isolated event. It was very much an American and world event, but it was one of those events that we relied on a couple of key sources. We didn't have our own opinion to share. We had our own opinion to act on. But then we were faced with, now in this crisis, global coverage and also our own ability to, hello everybody. All right. Can you hear me good?
Oh yeah.
And you can see me?
Beautiful.
Yep. We were faced with this whole reality that we've been saying stuff online or on social media, about things up to this point, about our businesses, about ourselves, about our families, about our, omelets and things like that. And now we're like, what do I say about this thing? Because it has severely impacted, hospitality will probably see an 18-month to 2-year recovery from this whole situation. So there are businesses that will be decimated, and there are businesses and lives that people will probably take their own lives because of this situation. So I'm glad you kind of spoke about the mindset of being healthy in this environment, because just, full disclosure for your audience, like I'm someone who has struggled with depression and struggled with these mindset things. And it's not necessarily just being the tortured writer. It's just, it's environment, nature, nurture, all this stuff. It comes down to a point where imposter syndrome, and you have all these labels for things but what I've, this in preparation for this talk, the phrase that kind of came to me in terms of like, whoa, where do I find that if I don't have it?
Okay, I don't want to derail you right now, but I really have to ask something because
Yeah.
you touched on this, and I think this is really important for every individual person.
Right.
So, you said, like, you've had, your own kind of struggles at times. You talked about, like, the possibility of somebody taking your life. I actually have now heard of somebody, a second tier connection that took their life as the result of being in quarantine.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as people that are in on this call or on this webinar, and they're in a professional role, how do you feel, like, is there a line to walk where they can kind of be honest and open about communicating their feelings, their own personal challenges and struggles? Like, where do you feel like that plays a role? Definitely overall, but in an environment like this.
I think there's two things, and it kind of actually brings me back to the point I was going to say,
Okay.
which is good. So you didn't derail me. We just kind of went on your track, and then we came back to mine, which is always good. But it's this sense of having a deep conviction. It's what is the deep conviction that is, guiding your life, that is guiding you to say the things or do the things that you do for a livelihood, for a calling, whatever, for your purpose, whatever that is, whatever that phrase that works for you is. But there's a deep conviction that drives everything that we do. And so there's the two sectors where I think this works is we've got one-to-one conversations. So, we're kind of breaking the barrier here because I'm just really transparent, and I want people to understand where I'm coming from. But from a one-to-one conversation with a phone or a Zoom call or whatever it is, I think that is the appropriate place to really get real with people, get deep, and develop that sense of shared common ground of like, wow, yeah, this is crazy, or oh my gosh, we're going through this, or yeah, everybody asks, so how's your business? Because that's the thing right now. Everybody is, most people are like, oh, the stores are open. It's not that big of a scare. I can get more than 2 breads right now, which is important for me. But it's that whole idea of like, well, how is your business? And like, well, my business is a service business, and a lot of our clients are essential or work virtually. And so we really haven't been impacted at this moment by this whole situation. I feel like there's a ripple effect, and we're definitely, as much as I'd love to say that my business is essential, we're a line item like we all are at some point. You being a coach and being a strategic advisor, like that is a line item at some point where everybody's like, well, is this essential to keeping the lights on?
Yep.
Some would say yes, and some would say no. And so when it gets to that next level, though, where we're talking to our network, where we're broadcasting that, where we're going, and that's, I think, is the key, is like, we can identify that this is crazy right now, but crazy has been here. The first email I got during this whole thing, when I called my dad, and my dad had a long career in ad sales and worked in city government, all this kind of stuff. And I called him and said, hey, just lost one of our biggest clients. We ended up getting that client back because they weren't shut down. They thought they were shut down.
Boom.
But
okay.
I got that call, right?
Yep.
And so I emailed my dad, or I called my dad, shared that with him. That night he sent me an email, and he said, just to encourage you, your mom and I lived through the polio scare. We lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis. We lived through Vietnam. We lived through the 80s. We lived through 9/11. We lived through da 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 da. And our grandparents and beyond, all the way back to the beginning of time, there's just this crisis. But like you said, it's our resolve. It's how we respond to it. And so that's the crunch time now, is how we respond, and what kind of message do we share, and what is the vehicle for that message. And so, yeah.
Do you think that, like, I think there's also a balance. I shared this a little bit with like my kind of Bed Bath and Beyond joke email, but do you feel like there's also a balance of like doing it from a genuine place as well as being disingenuine and, you know, doing it just for empathy or just for people to listen, or like, I just want to tell my story so people feel bad enough to keep giving me business. Like, do you see that as being a potential problem?
I would say no, because I feel like I don't think anybody really gives anybody business anymore because they feel bad for them. I
Oh,
feel like there are, I mean, you know, depending on, I'm going to be shifting just because of coverage coming. So don't adjust your TV set. But there is this kind of sense that we're, you know, you can be sharing something just for the sake of sounding relevant.
mm-hmm.
And for me, that's where you get tripped up pretty easily. And so where we're trying to coach our clients and write content for them that isn't, is yes, let's identify where we're at, but let's also identify where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, we want to take people with us. And, you know, frankly, I haven't been more optimistic in the midst of a crisis than in my life than now.
Yeah.
And that may be the part of the entrepreneurial part of me, but there's also a part of me that's just, I feel like I'm living that conviction.
Yeah.
Because I've embraced my identity or my calling as a writer and an advisor who understands empathy, who understands people, and wants to help them tell that message and tell it in an appropriate fashion.
Well, and I think that this is two good things for people listening to really hear, you know, beyond just you and I having a conversation here, is like, this supports what I said earlier about, you know, we need to be helping our clients think about the future, right? Like, this just isn't about like securing our own business. This is the future. And so part of that, I think, is like, we see from the 2008 recession came some of the biggest companies that we see recognized today, right? Like Netflix being one of the biggest ones. And look at, like, they are the essential service of all essential services at the moment.
Right.
And so I think this is such a unique opportunity for people, whether it is starting a new business for themselves or just looking at their own business and figuring out how they can reconfigure it in a way to take good advantage, right? With integrity, like not trying to like hurt people, but like how they can take advantage of this situation to restructure and recommunicate what it is they're really out for, so they can see even more success coming out the other side, right?
Right. Yeah, I think people need to really to stand apart. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is like, what can we do to stand outside of this chaos and this noise? And to me, that is, you know, give away your expertise. We have a client in the accounting space who has been doing a weekly Wednesday webinar, kind of like you, really dealing specifically with the whole PPP and the disaster relief loan, and completely just giving away all of his consulting time and things like that, because he's not afraid of losing business. He is excited about gaining business because of it. He's not worried about the billable hours that are on the table. He's excited about the new relationships and new opportunities that will be brought his way because of generosity, because of just being recognized as a trusted leader.
Yep.
And so, and some people just may not feel like, well, I'm not a leader, or I'm not, you know, I'm just a salesperson, or I'm just a, you know, a number on the sheet. And that's not true. But how do you get to the point where you no longer are struggling with that spot and it's standing out just in this fashion? We all have the capabilities to cultivate and develop an audience in an authentic way. And that the biggest way of doing that is leading with your story, the stories of the people around you, and letting those have the effect that they can have, not trying to push them to reach a bottom line, because that bottom line will never be satisfactory. It'll always be something that changes or flows or becomes the next, you know, it'll spit you up to the next tier that you want to reach. Yep. But if the posture of being authentic and honest in all the aspects of how we do things, that will always have a lasting value and will always sustain the relationships during times like these.
Yeah, no, that's super duper good. And I think that, as we are now landing the plane in the last couple of minutes of this conversation, I think that, you know, it is essential that we are clear on, who we are, on our message, on making sure that we have a way to communicate that appropriately. I think a lot of times, and this is just a lack of self-awareness with people, but we think that the things that we're saying are telling of who we are, and in reality, they're not. We're not communicating appropriately or accurately to who we are, or to who people really want us to be. So I think understanding yourself, getting clear with that messaging is really important. And the other thing that you said there, which I really liked, which is something that I got from Bob Berg, the author of The Go-Giver, but also one of my favorite quotes ever is from Zig Ziglar. And he says, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. Right. And that's not to say that I'm helping people just to get, but like all of this investment, your accounting client, like what I'm doing here on webinars, like what you're doing and sharing in this webinar, like you invest into people during this time, which is again, like Airbnb story. They just backed out. Like they just made themselves irrelevant. Like you take this as an opportunity to invest. If you've got money, spend it. If you have time, use it. Invest into your audience and into the people that you want to attract now. Because like, if not, the problem I think is, and you probably see this for like the few clients that have scaled back, like, they're going to be in deep shit at the end of this year when they try and restart it back up. They're going to have to start the engine all over again, and it'll be 2022 before they start to see the benefit.
Right. And that's, and that was a personal decision on our end where, we onboarded some new team members to start producing content for us during this time. We're doing stuff for free for a few clients who had to pause because they had to furlough everybody. And it's just, it's a personal decision because that's an investment in them being a client 3 to 5 years from now, because I know the leaders, I know how driven they are. They had to pivot because that's just their reality. They had to shut down. But, we can all make a personal sacrifice during this time that, is a sacrifice that is, maybe, it'll lead to more stuff. That's the nature of a sacrifice is, I'm going to do this thing for these people now in the hopes, and it's okay to hope for more business. It's okay to hope that this will lead to more stuff. It took me a long time, where you and I met at BNI, it took me a long time to really think that the giver's gain philosophy held water. I think it was just immaturity and age. And then, but some of us, it just takes a long time to really understand that it works. But it works because it's just we all want to succeed, and we do feel better when we're helping somebody else succeed.
Totally.
And so giving away, positioning yourself as the expert by giving away your expertise will always be appreciated. And you never know who's going to appreciate it. And I think that's the part is, we all want a big audience. We all want a big network. We all want to reach the most people we can. But, our goal is 2 new clients a month, and that's ambitious for us because we're a small business. Because 2 new clients is a lot of work. And so I always ask people, what do you really see as what your needs are? Because the growth, could be astronomical from the right one person could do wonders for you. You just never know, but you got to put it out there.
Yeah. Which again is why you have to stay relevant, like by whatever means you possibly can, as you're quote unquote marketing yourself, you have got to stay top of mind. And as John has just supported, what I'd even been sharing earlier, it's like you do that by just consistently communicating, by adding value, by putting yourself out there. Like I love I'll give it away because I believe in these leaders, and you hope it comes back. If it doesn't, you won't be disappointed in doing it. And I think that's the other great thing too, is like, if we believe in what we're doing and we believe it provides a valuable service to the people that we're serving, then we're not going to feel bad about whether we get ROI off of that or not. Like the feeling inside oftentimes goes far much farther than the paycheck does anyway.
Yep.
So I think that that's really good. Okay, so we're wrapping here. I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat or in the Q&A, which is fine. But again, like I want to remind you that like now it's not just an appropriate time to be marketing and selling yourself, your business, whatever. It's necessary. It's necessary if you're providing a viable product or service. It's necessary to your own benefit. Like you shouldn't bury yourself in the ground because you're afraid to speak out about what it is that you're offering to other people.
Right.
You just need to have the right mindset in doing it, making sure that you're thinking about other people now, other people into the future, giving all that you can, and just watch as that comes back. Like it will come back. Like I'm with John. Like I am more hopeful through this downturn. I mean, we have seen a significant number of deaths and it is horrific. And I know that that's not the end. And that is so sad. And yet from the economic side of things, like when this spigot turns back on, we've all got to go back to work, or we're all going to really want to go back to work. And so I'm hopeful for what's coming. I think as a whole, even as a country, we're in a much better headspace about pushing forward than we have been in a long time. And the greatest benefit, I think, of it all is we value people and human connection and relationships a lot more than we ever have because it was taken away from us.
Right.
So use that as a good opportunity to make this a successful season of sales and marketing.
Get out in front of the camera. I told a local restaurant that was struggling, and they reached out and said, "What can you do for us?" And I said, "Honestly, I can't do anything for you that you can't do yourself." I told the owner, "You're known in the community. Get out in front of the camera." His social media, he's been doing a video almost every day for the last week and a half. His social media metrics are off the charts, and people are getting takeout. So.
Okay, and so because they're on this call right now, I'm gonna shout out two people that are doing that. Definitely go follow John. You can go to redmallard.com or you can look him up on LinkedIn, John Welches. He's sharing daily content on LinkedIn as well as Instagram on his morning walks, which have been really cool to see. But there's two other people on here that I want you to go check out and follow. So the first one is Jennifer Kinley, Kinley. She runs a benefits practice back in Tennessee. She's doing some really cool videos. She's nominated right now for a benefits person of the year or woman benefits person of the year. I know I butchered that, but she's just an awesome individual to follow. So you can find her on LinkedIn, again, Kinley. So she's great to follow. And the other one, I'm sure there's a lot of you guys doing cool stuff, but the other one that popped up was Robert Clark. I've known Robert for about a year and a half. He's on LinkedIn. He's killing it with his content. You just missed. He was like challenging everybody in the LinkedIn world to run a 6 or a 5 minute mile faster than he did. He finally got his. And so that challenge is off the table, but I'm sure if you follow him for long enough, he'll pay you some money to do something fun. So go follow both of them. They're doing a lot of great stuff from a content perspective. If you want to be referred out to other people that are in attendance here, please make sure that you send me a note. You can email me, you can text me, whatever communication you have, and I'll be sure to share that. I would love to see you guys all get connected, build relationships, and support one another during this time. So on that note, thank you guys. Almost another hour in the books on a Friday. It's an amazing day. We have a significant opportunity in front of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here and being a part of this. I don't know what we're going to talk about next Friday, but it's going to be freaking amazing. So with that, you guys, thank you so much.
Did you say a 5 minute mile?
Sub 6 minute. Yep. 5 minute mile.
I did a 5:40 in high school. Does that count?
No, that was a long time ago.
80 pounds too.
Okay. On that note, we're out. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.